A big g'day and welcome to another massive edition of the RDFNL Netball Show. Thanks to Ontime Delivery Solutions, and I'm joined by Tara Murray from the Star Weekly. Our netball tips are going terrible at the moment.
I think I lost the lead. I was in front, and I had a horrible. I said I tipped a couple of upsets, and there was one, but I picked the wrong one. So obviously in a draw as well. So I had a horrible week with the netball tips.
I think you got one. You're doing one better than I am because I got a lazy donut. So I knew there was a draw coming somewhere in the vicinity, but it was the wrong game. But we will talk up the draw because I think it was a big day out at Wallen. The Wallen and Ruperts would have delivered on the senior footy field and delivered on the netball court. We saw 34 goals apiece.
It was, and obviously this is a big game for the Magpies. They've obviously been around the mix, obviously, in Macedon, Riddle, and lost a couple of close matches. So for them to come away with at least half the points against one of these top sides is very important. Both sides weren't at full strength. VNL commitments hurt both sides. I think it hurt Rupert's Wood a lot more. They had no Claire Johnson. I think Hayley Matthews could only play a half. They're also missing Abby Gilmore for other reasons. So you take them out of the side and it has a big impact on them. But then you've got to give credit due to the Magpies that they played the game and they were leading at 3/4 time. They managed to hold on and get a couple of points out of it.
Yeah, it's great for confidence for them because we know Rupert's Wood are a quality side, and to be able to go up there and be able to match it with them really says where Wallen are at this season, that they're a top 4 side and they deserve to be there.
Yeah, that's what I would say. They're a top 4 side from what we've seen so far. They're winning all the matches that they should win, and then they're in every other game. So that's all you can ask for. You've got to be at least competitive. They'll be wanting to play finals, and trying to get a scalp over a couple of these top set sides will be what they'll be looking for in the second half of the season.
I think Rupert's Wood will they won't look too much into that result there. I think they'll be able to still keep it as business as usual.
Well, that's what I would say. They're still second on the ladder, so they've had one loss to Macedon and they've had a draw. So, and that Macedon game, they didn't play well. They could have quite easily got over the line there as well. So you look at that, you've got that. I think Rupert's Wood is still a quite strong side when they've got their full unit on the court. On the weekend, they had Matilda Elliott come in. I think it's either a second or third game for a season. She's one of their young players. Hannah Keen's another one who came in and was in the goal shooting circle as well and given opportunities. So they're getting those young girls still through the side. So there's still a lot of upside for the Sharks up there.
You said on the show last week that there would be a potential for upset, so we went through a few games and thought, well, maybe these games could serve up the upset. But the one upset that did occur, I don't think anyone saw coming. It was Rockbank, a big win over Diggers Rest.
I think the only people who saw that coming was actually Rockbank itself. Mm-hmm. I spoke to Lizzie Masterson the week before, and she said they were confident of beating Diggers Rest, and they did exactly that. So looking at the figures, I thought Diggers Rest, were they impacted by VNL, but it seems that all their players played the full game. So your Annika Shearer and your Carly Harrison both played 4 quarters according to the stats I've seen. So you look at that, in the end, Diggers had one more shot, and so they were hurt by inaccuracy. I think 59% shooting accuracy, so that does hurt. Where at the other end you had Beck Hicks, who got 27 goals from 31 shots or something like that. So you've got that accuracy. Well, she's a tall player who gets a lot of the ball underneath the ring. So when you shoot in under the ring, you should shoot better. I'm someone who doesn't necessarily do that, but with that sort of stuff. But it's also their defence. You've got Danny Jane, who's a gun down there. I saw her play in round 1, and she really shut down the defensive end down there. So for Rockbank, they're sitting just outside that top 6, and they want to play finals this year, and they're showing all the right signs. They've already won more games than they did for the whole entire of last season. Yeah, and perhaps even the last time when they were around as well. So they're really starting to flex their muscles, and they would have been hoping to play finals this year, and your average punter might have thought, well, if they can at least knock on the door, that's fantastic, and they'll definitely make their way next year. But the fact they're doing that already, they're exceeding expectations right across the board. Look, they themselves thought they would make finals, so obviously they looked at making finals last year, and I think got a bit of reality check coming into the competition with a whole brand new side. But this season they've added a couple of players, and they said, we want to play finals, and then we think we'll be a contender in 2-3 years' time. They're sort of showing that at the moment that finals goal is quite possible this year.
Getting a bit of concern about Diggers Rest at the moment, because they did come in with a lot of promise, a lot of expectation, great expectation under Pam Strong. And I know we were talking about they make the finals, they win that first final, and the way they go. But the way things are going, maybe it could be Rockbank that could knocked them out of the finals race.
Look, obviously they started really well and we thought good signs, and even they had good signs against Macedon and Rupertswood, who sit 1 and 2 on the ladder, but they've been a little bit more disappointing. I thought they started so well and they've got a lot of talent, whether it's the talent not quite gelling together. You have got a brand new side, so it does take time. Yeah. And look, I'm expecting them to build as the season goes along, but that's probably one match they would be disappointed that they dropped.
Perhaps the break couldn't come quick enough for those girls there. Another massive game. We saw Wood End Heskett take down Broadford on through the record. I tipped this match to be a draw. How wrong I was, especially against the Hawks, a club that I grew up with. But fantastic win there by the young Hawks, and I think a pretty solid display there by Broadford as well.
Look, these are your 2 bottom teams in the competition, and this is the only one I did get right for the round. So I did tip the Hawks, and look, for them, they're building confidence. They've got their second win of the season. Broadford still sits below them, and look, for the Hawks are starting to get their players back. Tara Burnett was back this week after missing a couple. Alexandra Watkins was best on court for the Hawks, playing in defence, and they've got a lot of young players. Obviously, Sarah Duff has been named in the AFL Goldfields, I think, under-17 netball side that's going to head up north and play up there in a few weeks' time. So she's one of those developing players who's generally mid-quarter but has had to play a bit of goals, so shown her flexibility. And you've got that, and it is tough for Broadford out there, but they were competitive for the whole entire game. It was sort of only that third quarter was the difference. You had Ali Black, who was playing in the goals for Broadford, was named their best, and they're just got to continue to be in this contest, be competitive, and hopefully that win will come for them.
It definitely will be. There's no doubt about that at all. Macedon had a hard-fought win over Romsey.
Yeah, this is one I thought may have gone the other way. This was one game that VNL Commitments was going to have an impact. You had Macedon had no Ty Coppinger and they had no Caitlin Alfreco. So that's 2 players out, and was unsure what they were going to get from Janelle Birch and Chloe Wilson, also on VNL restrictions. So both of those 2 played 3 quarters. You had on the other side, Romsey had Kaylee Armstrong and Monique Clark, who both play VNL and were unsure what they were going to do. And in the end, it was sort of the second quarter that was the difference. It was a pretty physical game from all reports. Speaking to Kira Stewart, and she said both teams played a very physical game. It was a really, really good game. In the end, it was the Cats' versatility that sort of worked for them. They've got several players that can play different positions, and they had a couple come up from B grade and play a couple of quarters, and they performed well. The Redbacks didn't perform great. I heard it wasn't a great day for some of their players, so they threw everything around in that last quarter. We saw Monique Clark, who's played defence all season. She played a little bit of wing defence at one point, and then she moved into goal shooter in that last quarter. So I spoke with their coach Luke the week before, and he said they have got different options that they can throw around, and we sort of saw that in the final quarter. They did get on a 5-goal run at one point and bring it back to 6, but the Cats were still too strong. Yeah,
they seem to flex their muscles, and as you said, the versatility is extremely strong in that lineup. And a game that could have also gone the other way, we saw Riddle comfortably and confidently account for Melton Centrals.
It is. It's been a very probably disappointing Melton Centrals-like season for them. They were missing Sally Portbury and Rachel Dufton, so that does make an impact to their side and New York side. But Riddle were quite dominant. You only had Beck Caldwell play a half. I think Ellen Close only played a half, and possibly even Lauren Close only played a half due to VNL. But at the same time, they still won by 23 goals, so it was a quite dominant performance. You had Tanisha Badensky, I think it's pronounced, I'm not sure 100% how it's pronounced, but she shot 31 goals. She played the whole game in goals. She's played a little bit here and there, taking spots, but she played the whole game with the other 2 shooters on restrictions, so she really stood up. And you had Molly Tresias, who's come up from B grade as well, was best on court. So they've had
that's fantastic for her. Great aspirations for her to play that level, and she showed on the day.
It is, and that's what you're seeing. You've got Riddle has got a bit of depth. They've got those players who can step up, and they really perform for Centrals. It was another disappointing day with shooting accuracy. It was a poor day all round. They now sit 9th. With 1 win and 1 draw, and it's somewhere we haven't seen Centrals for a very long time, and you probably think what's been happening here. Obviously they have had a few changes, but just things aren't working this year.
Yeah, hopefully and you can see with clubs like this or teams they invest a lot in during the year, and maybe so it doesn't work out, and maybe we do see a bit of a change up at the end of the season, but I'm hoping we don't see that. I'm hoping we see Randy kick on as coach. I'm hoping we still see some of these girls still stay on and have prominent roles within the club.
Well, they do have a lot of young players who they've brought through as well. That's the one thing they have done this year. They've had to bring through some of those younger players. And
sooner than they expected, probably.
Well, they've had a very experienced lineup for a number of time, and obviously looking at that, I think they were missing Jess May as well. So you've got Jess May, Sally Portbury and Rachel Doveston. That's three of their key players out of that side. Any side's going to struggle, but at the same time, Riddle was missing players, not playing full games. So you look at that, for Centrals, they've had to bring some of those younger players in because they're not a side that goes out and recruits female players and all of that. They're looking to build from within, and hopefully we'll see some of those. This year will be a good stepping stone for these players, and then they'll be key players in the Centrals lineup.
Straight back into the finals. That's where we're used to seeing them, and under some great guidance there, and the netball court's coming along beautifully. Tara, thanks so much for joining us on this week's edition of the RDFNL Netball Show, and thanks to Ontime Delivery Solutions, and we'll catch up with yourself next week.
Thanks for having me.